Hello, welcome to Systems Reimagined. Today I'm joined by Samuel Moore in the flesh and Rachel Duffy, who is currently back at uni. And yeah, we're going to be unpacking some of the biggest stories of the past week, starting off with the free school meals fiasco, which we all saw unfold over the past week, including some back and forths with during Prime Minister's question time. We're going to discuss the success of the vaccine rollout in the UK, as well as some more Brexit updates with regards to workers' rights violations. Finally, we're going to turn to a little bit more of an internationalist outlook and look at the Ugandan elections, which just went down. And finally, go to the US to look at Joe Biden's U turn on $2,000 checks for the American people. With that being said, as always, like, subscribe, and all that jazz if you enjoy our content and want us to grow and things like that. And yeah, Rachel, I think it's up to you to take us off.
Thank you. So I'm sure that everyone will be aware of the free school meals fiasco. So Tuesday last week, we saw a lot of images being circulated online on Twitter and Facebook of parents who went to collect their free school meal food hamper for their children and were frankly shocked by what they received. Now, there's some variance between these hampers whether they were to feed one meal for one child for 5 days, 7 days, 10 days. But the consistent theme throughout was that the food was not adequate, and it was certainly nowhere near enough to feed those children anywhere near the standard that they would receive at school if they were receiving the free school meals, or even just normally in during the holidays. So a lot of MPs on both sides of the house, it's fair to say, were very, very kind of shocked and appalled by this, and they put it to Boris Johnson at Prime Minister's Questions on Wednesday. Now, he said that he was shocked and appalled, and an investigation would be launched into the private company that was supplying these free school meals, or lack thereof, really. But I think it does again come down to the fact that it has been outsourced to a private company who are there to make a profit. And this could be seen by the fact that it was supposed to equate to, correct me if I'm wrong, around £30. And people did a kind of quick look at what the items were, and I won't kind of go back over them because I'm sure we've all seen the pictures, but it came to really no more than about £6. Even
Yeah.
when the company kind of addressed the cost of manufacturing and paying wages and things, it was still coming to like £10. So it was woefully short, woefully inadequate, which Boris himself has said. And again, Starmer did a good job of kind of pressing him about this, but he was quick to come to the defense of free school meals, and it's a continuing theme. So I'm not sure what you two both think about that, but clearly a huge story, and there's not much one can say apart from like the fact that it's really awful.
Yeah, I think it's shocking, and yeah, it just goes into this general theme of how the conservatives, I feel like, have this reluctance to try to feed some of the lowest income families, or like their children, I guess. Throughout this whole pandemic, we've seen it with Marcus Rashford's, rightly so, campaigning for increased free school meals, etc. But something I do want to draw attention on quickly is one of these clips that Matt Hancock had on Good Morning Britain with Piers Morgan, and it shows how they're discussing this free school meals fiasco, and he's very reluctant to kind of say that he regrets not voting for free school meals previously. And although I could see how people are like, oh, that's trying to be a gotcha moment and stuff, but at the end of the day, Matt Hancock, who as we'll see now, was banging on about how proud he was about the free school meals being rolled out, all that kind of stuff. If he actually genuinely feels that way, he should have no problem saying, "Oh, I was at fault for not voting for free school meals. I regret it." So yeah, anyway, I'll just play that for you guys now.
I want to see good, high quality food. I'm really glad that we're able to send out food for those who receive free school meals when schools are in, and I'm really glad that we're able to do that when schools are out.
If you're that glad, can I just ask you a difficult question? Why did you vote against it?
Well, I'm really glad we were able to put it into place.
Yeah, but if you're that glad about being able to put it into place, again, why did you, as Health Secretary, vote against this?
Well, because the reason that I'm glad now is because we've been able to sort that out and put it in place.
Well, the reason you're glad now is that you got shamed.
No, thanks to you.
Let's be honest, you got shamed into it by a football player, a young football player with a conscience, who managed to prick the conscience of you and the government. Do you regret now, given how glad you are that it's now happening, do you regret voting against it?
Well, of course, I'm pleased that we're making sure that.
That wasn't the question. I just asked if you regretted. But hang on, it's a very important question because you wouldn't have done it without Marcus Rashford campaigning. My question for you is, given how glad you now are that it's happening, do you regret voting against it? It's a yes or no.
Well, as I say, I'm really glad that it's happening now.
But do you regret it? Do you regret voting against it?
Well, I'll put it this way. In the first lockdown, we took this action. And now, as you say, we're in
Health Secretary, you only have to say yes or no, whether you regret it. You either regret it or you don't.
Well, I'm really glad that the situation's been resolved.
Okay. So you regret voting against it?
I'm really glad it's been resolved and we've sorted it out. I'm going to use my own words to describe my own feelings on this one.
So you won't answer the question?
Well, it's that I'm answering the question, and I'm really glad that we've sorted.
Well, let's just hope going forward we don't rely. Let's just hope we don't have to rely, as we have to again this week, on Marcus Rashford to once again expose the iniquity of this system, because these kids are in lockdown, they're suffering, they're hungry, and they need support, and they need proper support from you as Health Secretary and the government. Thank you for joining us.
We're back in a moment.
And the good thing is, Piers, that's what we're delivering, and we're sorting out this problem. And ministers in the Department for Education who run this policy have spotted this, acted on it fast, seen the company.
Yeah, but Gavin Williamson, to nobody's surprise, Gavin Williamson didn't spot it before it was put on social media.
And as you guys saw there, very, very reluctant to really admit that he was wrong in that regard. But something I'll say just before I lead off to Samuel here is that I think it's important to consider the framing of this free school meal debate and how it's been implemented and rolled out. So during the first time which Rashford got free school meals, kind of passed through Parliament, stuff like that, it came in the form of vouchers essentially, right? And this was really it was £15, I believe, per voucher, and there was a slander campaign against these vouchers, saying that these families are just going to use it to buy drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, all this kind of stuff, right? Ludicrous argument, because in the free school meal vouchers themselves, you couldn't even buy any products which were like age prohibited or age restricted or whatever it may be. And so first of all, that's just one aspect of it, and this kind of, I guess, would be a reason, maybe not the main reason, but one of the reasons why they went to this privatization, outsourcing of these hampers, I would say. And so you kind of see and this also led to an issue, right, as Rachel pointed out. So all in all, I'd say this whole debate is really frustrating, because I'm sure there's good ways to go about this, and the one way which you went about it was slander by the media, and then the other way was outsourcing, which was inadequate. So I guess we'll get into a bit more discussion later about how to actually deal with this issue. But anyway, that's all I have to say on that.
Yeah, I remember after the whole disaster in the summer with Rashford and the free school meals. I remember for the second time to extend the free school meals, there was still a reluctance from the Tories, and I remember saying that that baffled me, because after getting such bad PR in the summer, to now just still being reluctant and continue to dig their heels in with not extending these free school meals, I thought it was political suicide, and it was just, I think it's embarrassing. And now this further reluctance to extend it further, as we are still suffering with this coronavirus crisis. I just didn't understand the thought process. It just, not only because I understand their their belief system. I think the conservatism in them kind of prohibits them of it allows them to be more reluctant for handouts and what they consider handouts. But I mean, the third time around now, they're still reluctant to continue to extend this free school meal. I just don't understand, just on the optics of it, like they might not believe it, but surely for their own political gain, they would just accept it because it is popular within the population and it does affect so many people. And I think most people just view it as something that's just like cruel, So I just don't understand from a politics point of view why they don't extend it and yeah, and also with this whole the whole issue around the privatization of of outsourcing the free school meals. I think it's just a disaster. I mean, if we can look at a country, for example, like Finland, since 1948, they've had a system where people between the ages of 6 and 16 receive free school meals, And I'm not saying you have to be like Finland, but there's so many countries around the world who have comprehensive systems to at least subsidize food for students. And I just think this outsourcing, there's always going to be a consequence because, as we know, with a lot of private companies, they do cut costs wherever they can, and just giving them the responsibility to provide £30 worth of food is always going to be a recipe for disaster, as we've seen with the images that are circulating around the web. Yeah, I just don't. Yeah, it just baffles me, how they continue to dig their heels in and continue to, especially in the biggest economic crisis for decades, how they still so stubborn about this issue. It just blows my mind. So yeah, I think it's just nothing else to say. It's just mind blowing that they're still so stubborn about this issue.
Yeah, I agree. I think on that point, it is just crazy. Obviously, the government will have to take decisions that aren't necessarily vote winners, and not every decision that they can take fiscally or in any other sense can be widely really popular. But I think that this one is just so ludicrous. I really don't understand, for an administration that is so keen on kind of the spin and their kind of press affairs and things, to see how widely unpopular it is. The issue aside, on principle, of the fact that you should be feeding those going hungry in the fifth richest economy in the world, if you just kind of pop that to the side for a moment, if you can, to look at it in terms of why they would fail to do that, and why every kind of new half-term holiday or Christmas holiday or Easter or summer, you've got to have this back and forth between a footballer and the government about whether you'll provide that support. I really don't understand. And time again, it's led to U-turns. It is just such an easy thing to get right, I would say. Also, I think it is worth mentioning that in terms of some of the suggestions that Labour are making, there is a fair critique of those. A good amount of Labour MPs have come forward and said that parents should just get cash in the hand, and they should then be able to go and buy whatever they need, whatever food their children need, and it's up to them to decide what's nutritious and what that food goes on. Although in practice, it's obviously a very good thing, because it would really highlight the trust that the government had in parents, which I think we're seeing an absence of in terms of giving them hampers or giving them specific vouchers. Schools have come forward and said, listen, at a time like this, we have enough going on in terms of online teaching and just acclimatizing to this whole new system and the layers of bureaucracy that they're already having to deal with. They weren't keen on the idea of then also getting checks from the government and distributing that cash to those parents that need it. So I think it is worth mentioning that although Labour have been quite effective in holding the government to account on this issue, which they absolutely should be, it would be difficult not to, some of their countermeasures aren't maybe the most effective, but I think overall, obviously, it's just something that needs an inquiry. But really, inquiry aside, just more better food needs to be provided and more of it.
I'll quickly just go on the optics of it. So first of all, in terms of just how it looks. Like, it's not like conservatives right now, the Conservative Party, just after they've announced this third lockdown, you have your deaths reaching new highs and things like that. They're not leading in the polls right now. A recent poll just came out that I think Labour had a margin of 4 points or something along those lines. So they're not leading in the polls, right? I mean, to be fair, Labour should be up way more than they are, considering the performance of the Conservatives with coronavirus. But that aside, so this would be a really easy thing to like get right, to be in the good books of voters, right? And they just failed on that. Also, again, I'd also want to mention that so the company which this contract was outsourced to, that's its parent company, was used to be headed by the chair of that company was a ex-Tory donor. So there's a link there in terms of how that money got, why the contract was awarded there. And as we know, a lot of the Conservatives' friends have been awarded contracts. I think there was a study done which showed that there were people who knew Conservatives in government or something along those lines were 8 times more likely to get contracts during this pandemic. And yeah, just with regards to the actual solutions that's being proposed, I mean, yeah, I don't know if I'd be in favor of a cash in hand solution. I don't understand why the vouchers was a bad idea personally. Like, this may just be something I'm not aware of. But yeah, I didn't understand why that's not a good solution for the time being. But just thinking more broadly, we're going to have someone on this either next week or the week after, who's from this organization called the National Food Service, to discuss how they're trying to combat this issue of hunger in the UK, or food insecurity, shall I say. And what they're trying to do is build communal centers, which allow for food to be given to people at affordable prices or for free, depending on where you are. And I think in the long term, a strategy like that maybe, or a publicly funded body similar to the NHS for food could be an interesting thing to discuss, just in terms of a policy proposal, because this stuff can't, like, I don't want to live in a society where you have 10%, I believe, of people are food insecure. Like, that's not a place I want to live in, right? So we need to do something to combat this. And the way we do it is definitely up for debate, but that's just one option which I've seen floated around on Twitter, at least, and just other parts of kind of the left-wing news bubble, shall I say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also excited to have the guest on the show next week to discuss possible solutions and how we can deal with food insecurity. But yeah, going back to what you're saying about the Cantwell and their origins and their donations to the Tory party, it just seems like a continuation of what we've seen so far in the pandemic, with the outsourcing going to companies that have certain connections to the Tory party. So yeah, it's just a continuation of that issue. And I'm not sure if you guys saw the photos, but do you see the photos of their catering, like, for private schools in comparison to the hampers that the normal schools, public schools are getting? It's just crazy. Like, the private schools have all this gourmet cooked food, like very neat, and they're like, the hampers is like a half cut tomato, and I'm like, it's just like, I don't know how they could go ahead with this. I don't understand. Surely they could have seen this and understood how bad this would look on their part. So yeah, it's just a crazy situation. And yeah, I wonder, if there'll be any significant change. I'm sure you would have to think that surely there'll be changes into how, like, the hampers will be done and the distribution, and making sure that you're getting your money's worth. But yeah, it's just crazy. And yeah, I mean, as you were saying about the vouchers versus handing money, or getting hampers. Yeah, I don't know the answer of that, but I think from what I see, I think vouchers could be an interesting option, because, as you said, kind of places trust in the hands of the people, and making and they choose what they can purchase themselves, like, because it is not nice. There's not much dignity in just receiving food that you have no say in receiving. So I do think vouchers could be an interesting way to do it. So yeah, I mean, let's see how it goes moving forward. But I just don't understand how they have yet to avoid these easy issues that I think are bipartisan with conservatives and more left wing. yeah, just a bit of a disaster, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think just to add on to the kind of voucher conversation, I agree in that I think it's certainly a good alternative, but there's just no like easy fit solution to this. Obviously, the kind of pre-packed hampers are failing. We've outlined how the cash in hand, as it were, is not a really viable alternative. And also with the vouchers, I think again, critics have said how it like removes a level of trust from parents again, that it's not cash, it's vouchers that have to be like spent in specific food supermarkets on specific items. But I think it is probably more viable in terms of at least like parents are able to have some say over what food is bought. Like there were issues about kind of like children being vegetarian or like parents kind of not like seeing the nutritional value of some things, and they're still like receiving tuna and meat and things. So there's certainly no easy fit solution, but yeah, I think vouchers may be a better way forward and just remove some of the power from those private companies and put it into parents' hands, because it's really not working at the moment.